All right, this is Infosec Decoded, number 46, SmartWater. And Irvin's going first with cheating at games.
Yes, even
I mean, I
though,
mean, I mean, not cheating at games.
yes. Don't cheat at games by cheating at games.
Yeah.
This is just one example you can use a Go to mess with your game as it connects out to the world to get updates or transfer data as you're playing. It kind of has an on the fly kind of like burp, where you can take something in, make a change to it, and send it out on its way. It doesn't work on every game, of course, because games have different ways to communicate. But if you can figure out how they do that, you could manipulate that to get what you're looking for.
Of
It
course, if they used HTTPS, it wouldn't work, right?
right unless you have some way of like proxying that info, then you can. Then it doesn't matter if it has HTTPS. You can take that out and bring that back in on the other side, and on it goes. It's just a fun little read that people could try.
It reminds me, there was a CTF, there was a network CTF years ago. I think Iron Geek had an article about it. And somebody won, not by actually solving the challenges, but by decoding the scoring engine and intercepting the packets to take away everybody else's points and give them to his team. And he said,
That's awesome.
that's a fair cop. That
Yeah.
counts as winning the network CTF.
Yep. I would think
Yep.
so too.
Yeah. And then we're stuck with Windows 10 apparently.
Yes, Windows 10 will hang around for 5 more years. So those who don't want to jump to Windows 11 yet, you
Which,
are fine for another 5 years,
which would be everybody, I think.
which will probably be most of us. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
like myself. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna stick my VMs with 10 until that's all sorted out.
So my, because the 11s I've tried are pretty gruesome.
Yeah, yeah.
And it looks,
Uh,
yeah.
the last one, the last article that I have, is one of those I think this is more of an opinion. This person says you should turn off the autofill in your password manager so that it doesn't automatically fill when you go to a site, because then that could be jeopardized in a illegitimate, you know, copy of a site or something.
Well, that
Uh,
looks like he's pretty much stealing the password with something like cross-site scripting.
yes, yes, and it looks like Brave and Safari are the two who prevent autofilling anyway.
Brave? I don't
Yeah.
think Brave prevents autofilling. I think I've.
According to the information that,
Oh,
that this person has,
oh,
it's
it
someone who,
doesn't autofill. I have to manually choose to fill. I didn't know
yeah,
that was Brave. Okay.
yeah. Apparently, Brave and Safari both do that. Everybody else lets you autofill.
Well, I'm using an extension that always requires me to prompt name. I'm not actually using the native browser password.
Right. Mine always locks, so I have to unlock it in order to copy and then paste. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's too much bother.
yeah,
Well,
but it keeps it to each session.
no, that sounds pretty cool. It'd be fun to steal passwords that way.
I
Why
think
would
it's
the browser?
interesting.
Why would the browser get fooled? I mean, everything's supposed to be HTTPS now. I shouldn't be able to imitate like Gmail.
Right?
Nice to know. It'd be nice to know in more detail how that worked. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I guess we'll go to Liz, who has something about Cuba. Haven't heard much about Cuba these days.
Yeah, well, over the past week or so, there's been some political stuff going on, and the government has been jamming social media sites over there, which is kind of a dangerous, slippery slope in and of itself. But it also came out this week. There was an interesting story on Vice about the government. Well, what appears to be government operatives jamming the ham radio bands, which are ham radio is super popular in Cuba. A lot of people use it. There's a lot of communication between Florida and Cuba, and I just thought that was pretty interesting.
I know they're having a lot of like protests and riots in Cuba and stuff because the American embargo is hitting them hard, and I guess so is COVID, and they're suffering a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
but
some people are talking about lifting the embargo. but people say Biden can't do that because he needs the votes from the Cuban refugees in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it would be quite on brand for them to block the transmission of unauthorized information.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. There's a handful of YouTubers who have done videos about this, and one of the people was using an SDR to sort of pinpoint where the frequency jamming appeared to be coming from, and surprise, surprise, looks like it's coming from Havana.
Yeah, not very surprising indeed. Yeah. All right. And Kaitlyn's got Crispr.
Yes. Oh, good news, everyone. So Live Science has an article written by Rachel Retner, senior writer. And essentially the idea is that instead of using vaccines, mad scientists, can use something called CRISPR. CRISPR is used for gene editing, and we can edit your DNA directly to make you largely immune to coronavirus instead of using these silly vaccines with their, 5G, whatever conspiracy, whatever's going on. We can just edit your genes and make you immune. How cool is that?
Well, now, I don't think that's what they did. They just killed the CRISPR. They didn't actually modify the DNA of the host.
No, that's exactly what CRISPR does. CRISPR is a gene editing technology.
Yeah, but they edited the gene of the virus, not of the human, right?
It's in human cells. First paragraph, Sam. Scientists have harnessed CRISPR gene editing technology to block the replication of novel coronavirus in human cells.
Right. They block the replication. That doesn't mean they're changing the DNA of the human.
Yes, they are. It's CRISPR edits human DNA. That's the whole point. Yes.
No, that can't be right.
It is right. It is right, Sam.
So this is exactly what all the anti-vaxxer people think it's doing, rewriting your DNA, making you into some horrible monster.
Right. But we can actually do it. How awesome is that?
No, they used a CRISPR system that destroys strands of RNA rather than DNA. That's what I thought. They didn't touch the DNA.
No. Well, I mean, it touches the DNA, but but the idea is that it targets the enzyme that binds to the RNA that's
right. But it's just messing with the RNA, which is quite harmless. That's like the RNA vaccine we have now.
No. It is, as far as I understand it, it is editing the DNA, but it's editing the DNA to make it so that it targets a specific site on the RNA that the enzyme binds to.
Right. So it's targeting destroying GANs for RNA rather than DNA. But I mean, if you're messing with the DNA, then that's really seriously not wise. And I don't think it's doing that. I think it's just messing with the RNA, which is relatively harmless.
I am pretty sure that CRISPR is for DNA editing.
It is, but they used a different CRISPR system in this one that targets RNA. I don't think anybody would let your CRISPR rewrite your DNA in a human.
That's the whole point of CRISPR. It's supposed to rewrite your DNA.
It's gene editing in a test tube.
Well, I mean, this hasn't been tested yet on people, but in theory it could, and we could totally rewrite people's DNA. And
in theory you could, yes, but there's huge ethical issues.
Well,
but attacking the RNA, which is only used temporarily and then thrown away, is perfectly fine. That's what you ought to do to kill an infection.
Well, I mean, but that's what the vaccine does.
Sure, and this is a similar kind of thing, attacking the RNA.
No. This is editing the DNA to attack the RNA.
Yikes. Well,
anyway, so we could totally do all the conspiracy stuff that the anti-vax people are talking about, and it could be really cool because the problem with vaccines is that the viruses can evolve and can escape the protections of the vaccines with new variants. If we edit our DNA to make us immune to stuff, we turn ourselves into mutants, we can totally just eradicate the coronavirus.
Yeah, then you've got the X-Men. I don't know, man. I still think there are some ethical concerns.
Oh, you and your ethics.
Yeah, apparently so. All right. Well, Alan's got this story about Putin.
Yes, it's one of those forgotten stories, inexplicably. The Guardian newspaper came out with this huge blockbuster story on the 15th about how they have exclusive access to legitimate papers from a January 22nd meeting in 2016, January 22nd, 2016 meeting of Vladimir Putin and his Security Council, the Russian National Security Council, in which they planned how they would support Trump before the 2016 presidential election. And of course, at that point, Trump was already the Republican nominee, but he was widely expected to lose and lose badly to Hillary Clinton. But as we all know, Trump, of course, won. And the Russian intelligence services certainly played a role in that. That is all well established. But this seems to provide further evidence that Russian intelligence and Russian government was highly involved in this and really undertook great efforts in order to aid Trump in the 2016 election. Of course, the Trump people, Trump supporters, and others have dismissed this report and have called this bogus, et cetera, et cetera. But according to experts who know this sort of thing, it does appear to be legitimate. And The Guardian also claims that a number of different Western intelligence agencies have access to this very same material and have been treating it as legitimate. One other really interesting thing in this report is that apparently there is an appendix to this Russian report that says that they have compromat on Trump from his earlier visits to Russia. Compromat being compromising information that can be leveraged for manipulation. And unfortunately, the appendix was not part of this leak, so The Guardian did not have a chance to look at it. But it certainly does lend some credence to the Steele dossier. We, of course, don't know what is true and what is not in the Steele dossier. It was widely dismissed as being just a bed of lies, but apparently, if this is to be taken as a legitimate document, as an authentic document, there is some kind of compromise, at least, that Russian authorities have on Trump from one of his earlier visits.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard this, I thought this was probably fake because it so perfectly dovetails with what we all pretty much deduced at the time. But they're apparently taking it seriously as an authentic document.
Yeah, and you know the odd thing about it is that this has got to be one of the most significant revelations in national security circles and intelligence circles and geopolitics, and yet the story got very little play. You know, it got attention for maybe 24 hours, a single news cycle, and then was totally forgotten. And I guess that's where we are.
Well, there's a flood of books exposing the last days of Trump, and they all just seem to more or less verify what we all thought was happening anyway.
Yes.
So, I mean, they need to explain why this really is different, because it doesn't say that they colluded with Trump. And we all pretty much knew Russia did this anyway.
Right. This is true. This is true. Although this certainly fleshes out the details.
Yeah.
So now we have not just hearsay, not just speculation, but now we have notes from the inside.
Yeah. All right. But I mean, actually, I can see why it doesn't gain traction, because the question is now what? If it doesn't help you prosecute Trump, it's not like we're able to do anything to Putin. So it really doesn't actually lead to any consequence, I think.
From that perspective, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. And I got one which also is, so China, the hawks in China posted a video, which they took down a while later after everybody had seen it, where they said, we need to change our policy of not making a nuclear first strike and make a specific exception of Japan, because Japan has said they have an obligation to protect Taiwan. And this is something, see, I was talking to a military friend, and he said, and I said, I don't think we should pull out of Afghanistan so roughly, because we had things kind of stable with just a few thousand troops holding it steady. And if we leave, the Taliban will just turn it back into a nightmare, and we'll just have to go back with 100,000 troops in a couple of years. So we're not gaining anything. And he said, no, we really have to pull out of Afghanistan now because China is the real threat. And we have to focus on that. And I realized they're kind of right. China just took over Hong Kong, violating all the rules, and we didn't do anything. And they said they're going after Taiwan next. They've made it quite clear. And Japan said they are going to vigorously defend Taiwan because they say if they take Taiwan, it'll immediately be Okinawa, part of Japan right next to it. And so now China is threatening nuclear war, nuclear first strike against Japan if they try to protect Taiwan from China taking it over. And what my friend said is the United States also has a treaty with Taiwan that would force us to defend Taiwan. So I've been hearing for the last several years a lot of rumbling about China being the next military threat to the US. And this, I think, is the meat on the bone. Maybe there is a possibility of war with China. Now, that would be bad. Anyway, this is not an official, I think it's not quite an official government statement that they're going to use nukes against Japan, but it's certainly very serious saber rattling in that direction. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But all right, and then we got Liz with private Israeli spyware. And can you turn up your microphone, Liz? You're quieter than the rest of us, I hear.
I think this is as loud as it gets. My voice isn't as loud as usual because I strained it over the weekend. So
I think you need an external mic like us. Anyway, good.
I'm using one, but I guess it's just not. I think it's my own voice that's quiet today.
Okay. Oh, well, that's.
So this is pretty interesting. What happened? Did you lose me?
You were freezing up there.
No.
You're back now.
Okay. So this was kind of an interesting story in that people always say, well, you know, we need backdoors in our devices and we need spyware and the cops need tools to be able to get into everyone's phones. And it's fine, you know, because the assumption is this stuff will never be misused.
That?
Well, that's the story. That's been the story from a lot of folks who are proponents of these things. Yeah. However, it does get misused. This was a pretty interesting story put out. First off, I didn't know that Amnesty International has a security lab and a forensics team, but they sure do. They did an analysis of like 69 phones, I believe it was, that had been used in or had been the targets of suspected attack. And turns out that a lot of them were compromised. And it was NSO's Pegasus spyware for phones that had been used to target journalists and activists and academics in some cases, various political dissidents. So something to bear in mind. It was a pretty interesting story that lists the breakdown of some of the stuff that they found. And one of the other interesting aspects of the story, I read several different articles about it, was referenced a zero-click iMessage flaw, wherein they could infect phones without anyone even needing to click on anything or interact with the text in any way.
Yep.
That was interesting.
The other thing I thought was I like their geotargeting. They say they had people who were being tracked, and when they come back to the US, the tracking stops. So they really did carefully not track people in the US, and that appears to be true.
Yeah.
But they did track US citizens if they went abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, and they say you ought to just accept that these tools are out there and they're in the hands of many governments, and anybody can just take over your phone at any time if they can afford enough money to buy this stuff.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting because there are like 40 agencies in like 40 countries that use this, which was pretty interesting. But They found their list of countries where they had found phones that they had a list of like 10 countries where they'd found compromised clusters of compromised phones, and they're all customers of NSO Group. So
Yeah. I thought it was great. I mean, I thought NSO should have paid the Washington Post money for this advertising. I mean,
yeah, right.
stuff that will take away a phone, and they will totally lie to protect their clients. Like if they totally were involved in Khashoggi, just like everybody said,
Yes.
and then they totally lied, and then they did forensic analysis of like his girlfriend and wife's phones and totally found the stuff. And they're like, oh, no, we did an internal investigation and we had nothing to do with that.
Right.
They're just what you want. They have the deadly weapon and they will totally lie about it.
Yeah, I know. I was envisioning some banana republic dictator reading this and saying, why don't we have this? We need it.
Well, anybody, the NSA, everybody, every spy agency, that's exactly what you want. Somebody that will kill people in the darkness and then lie about it. I remember I read books about recruiting for the CIA, and they said, we need to find people who are like morally flexible. Anyway, so anyway, I think some people might think this expose is going to hurt the company, but I don't think so. I think it's going to promote them.
No, they're like, okay, well, what we sell works. So if you want to spy on your political dissidents, come sign up for services, buy our stuff.
Well, they're weapons dealers, right? They sell you the weapons, you use it to do rotten things, and they say, well, we don't know what they do with it after we sell it to them. How could we know that?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, all right. And then Kaitlyn has got Tesla.
Yes. Jack Morse over at Mashable has this awesome story. It's actually, there's two parts to the story. The first part has to do with the fact that Tesla is now selling full self-driving apps for your car for $199 a month, just for the privilege of using their software.
Hasn't it always had that?
Well, it's had limited self-driving capability, but this is full self-driving. So this will do everything from, let's see, if I click their link here, go to Twitter, wait for Twitter to load, and then I can click on the image. Okay, there we go. So it can navigate on autopilot. It can do auto lane changes, auto park, summon your car like Batman's Batmobile. You know how he pushes a button and the Batmobile comes? You can do that with your Tesla. And it can also read traffic lights and stop signs and, stop when there's a stop sign or there's a little kid in the road. So you don't have to be responsible for murder, which is awesome. However, and then soon it'll be fully autonomous on, it'll have auto steer on city streets. So if you're on, because currently you can use some sort of like auto steering stuff on the freeway or auto control on the freeway, but soon it's going to come to city streets, but it costs $200 per month or a flat price of $10,000 for a piece of software, which is absolutely ridiculous, especially for a consumer product. I mean, I realize it's advanced, but we're not talking about corporations here who need an extra. This is like a fraction of the cost of the car for a software upgrade.
It's also in beta testing. So these people are paying to beta test the software that could, drive them right off a cliff.
Right, exactly. But that's the other thing too. So that I said there's two parts to the story. So the first part is that outrageous price for beta software. The other thing too is the full self-driving app. It should be noted that this is not full self-driving. It's a bit misleading. It still requires a fully attentive driver at all times in order to operate. So the fully automatic driving system that they're selling as fully automated is not fully automated.
No, and also apparently they're charging $1,500 for a hardware upgrade kit for people that own older Teslas that want to use this.
Yeah. And I mean, I can understand the physical upgrade costing money.
Sure.
It's just the software itself should not be costing $200 a month to use. I mean, that's silly. It should not cost the cost of a car to run some software, regardless of how advanced the software is.
Whatever they've got now, people are like sleeping in the back seat and letting it drive. So I wonder how perfectly self-driving this is. Another fun thing would be if you didn't want to pay for it, you could probably go on BitTorrent and get some hacked version and run that and see how well that works.
I'm sure you can, and I would never suggest people do that because that is illegal, and we don't want to do anything that would circumvent the DMCA or their copy protections.
Well, there's that, but I'm thinking more of killing yourself as it plows right into a tree. I mean,
it would certainly. I'm sure Tesla would love to be able to say when that happens, when their autopilot messes up, and someone goes into a tree. I'm sure Tesla would like to say, "Oh, well, the user illegally modified the system to install the software, which was not approved."
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'll be interesting to hear how well it works. I know psychological studies I've seen have said you cannot be a fully attentive driver when the car is doing all the work. You'll of course start watching a movie or playing video games or go to sleep or something.
I would love for the car to be a co-pilot in the sense that, and a lot of cars already do this too. Like they'll tell you if you're going to accidentally, change lanes into somebody and everything. I think that's a great safety feature. But I think you're right. I think that if you advertise something as fully autonomous, especially when it isn't, but if you do, all that you're going to do is psychologically make people feel like they don't have to do anything and not pay full attention.
I've always been waiting for fully self-driving cars because I think it'd be better than people. They might stay in their lane and actually under the speed limit and stuff if it actually worked.
I agree. I think I do believe that fully autonomous cars are going to be safer than autonomous cars. I just don't think that relying on people as the safeguard is necessarily the strongest strongest safety mechanism, because people are just going to ignore the road after a certain point.
Yes, I think so. Well, anyway, all right. And then we got Alan with, rewards for justice.
Yes, if you know the identity or the location of hackers who are working for foreign governments, hackers that are breaking into American infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and are violating the CFAA, then you are eligible for a reward of up to $10 million, courtesy of the U.S. government. And so the U.S. government's published this reward, and they've just made it very simple. All you need to do is go to the dark web, and they've got a special Tor website up on the dark web. You can report this information, and the U.S. government can pay you in the currency of your choice, including Bitcoin. Wow. And you can get up to $10 million that way. So if you work for a foreign intelligence agency and you're not very comfortable about all that hacking that's happening and that's targeting American infrastructure, then this is your opportunity to make some bucks and maybe flee or do something.
You remember The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? It's the first thing that comes to my mind. You could just make a deal to turn in your friend and then spring him, and then he can turn you in and spring him, and you can just collect all the rewards.
Yeah, I've been thinking this would be a great scam for bug bounties.
Yeah.
You just need an insider, and you work with them, and you just collect the money.
Or you just frame some guy you don't like anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe they have controls against that, but I don't know why I immediately assume the system is corrupt and broken, but somehow that's the first place my mind goes.
Yeah, who knows if they'll actually pay out anything on this. But this is not a new program, by the way. This program's existed for a number of years and has been used, paid out more than $200 million to over 100 individuals, mostly in anti-terrorism efforts.
Yeah, and I think this shows the right thinking that we should start thinking of cyber attacks as terrorism. Essentially what they are.
Yeah. And it makes sense to post a bounty too.
Yeah. It might have the desired effect where some of them start to betraying the other members of their group.
Yes.
And in the same spirit, I've got this one where U.S. condemns China for malicious cyber attacks, saying that they charged 4 Chinese nationals. And thought I had another one. Yeah. And so they indict people. I don't quite know what the point of this is. I don't know what they can do about it, but they're saying that China's been did that exchange email hacking in January, and has been stealing lots of company data from America. So again, we're getting more and more tough words from the Biden administration against Russia and China, and saying that they're both doing the same thing. They're making privateers. They're taking local criminals and sicking them on America as sort of a cutout where they can pretend it wasn't really a government doing it. And this kind of caught my attention because when they caught Lulzsec in 2012 and locked those people up in prison, Jeremy Hammond, who is the leader, said they told us that they would give us a reduced sentence if we started hacking foreign nations for the US government. And I just said, that's stupid. That can't be true at the time, but maybe that is true. Maybe we're all doing that, co-opting our local criminals to attack foreign governments so we can pretend it wasn't us. And anyway, that does seem to be the standard everywhere. And the standard in America seems to be, Nicole Perwath explained this well on a podcast, the standard in America is to talk tough like Biden and say, China, you better stop doing that, and Russia, you better stop doing that. But we don't actually dare do anything because we're so defenseless and we have most of the targets that if we start hacking them back, we'll be the ones that end up losing more. So we have empty threats. So far seems to be our real response. And pretty much just lying down and taking it is our only actual action. Anyway, then we're back to Liz with SmartWater.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting story. So I remembered hearing about this a few years back on Bruce Schneier's blog, and then I just didn't hear too much more about it. But apparently, it is starting to be used in quite a few places. Now, first off, this is not the SmartWater that's sold by the Coca-Cola company, which is just water for drinking with electrolytes in it.
Or at least you think that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know how they're not getting sued by Coca-Cola over that name, but somehow they've managed to avoid that so far. So
Gwyneth Paltrow will sell you water that has electrons in it. Other water doesn't have electrons and it's bad for you. You have to get the water with electrons in it.
Oh, I wasn't aware. I thought that came standard as
You can learn a lot from Goop that you wouldn't know about otherwise.
Oh, well, I can only imagine. I'm not a subscriber, but I'll have to check it out. So this SmartWater presumably does have electrons in it, but we don't know for sure because I don't know if they've done a review of it on Goop yet. It is actually a forensic tool used to catch thieves. So essentially this SmartWater is not detectable unless it's under UV light, and each bottle of it has a unique signature, supposedly. And the first crime has already gone to court on this, and a guy got indicted after stealing and getting marked with the SmartWater. Apparently, they've also been using it in California over the last few years to mark farm equipment in places where the farm equipment gets stolen on a regular basis, which I thought was pretty interesting. This liquid is, again, it's invisible except under UV light. So what they'll do is just spray it on the thieves or mark. In one of these stories, they marked some bait cash with it and then found the liquid on an employee. And one of the things that was interesting to me about this, and I couldn't find too much more info on it, was that it stays on a person for weeks, on their skin, on fabric indefinitely. And it just made me wonder what the hell's in this stuff.
Nanotechnology, they say, but it stays on your object you're protecting for 5 years.
Yeah.
I wonder what the consequences will be. I mean, the obvious consequence is by then it will just smear everywhere.
Right.
You won't be able to really tell where they got it.
Well, supposedly that's where the unique forensic signature for every bottle comes in.
Yeah. But I mean, then I'm wondering if they're going to discover some god awful health consequence. I mean,
That's what I'm curious about. Anything that stays on your skin for that long, I have a lot of questions about.
yeah,
And here in California, there are laws against setting booby traps. You can't booby trap your property. Reason being, what if there's an emergency and first responders have to come on your property and then they get caught in some bear pit full of spikes, can't do it. So, I'm thinking to myself, if there is any kind of if it does turn out to be medically harmful, I could see this being considered as a booby trap.
but I guess they've been using like those blue dye packs they stick in money for years, and those haven't led to lawsuits. And that's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, but I think they're pretty sure that doesn't, cause immediate harm of any kind. And I don't think the blue dye stays on for weeks and weeks. I think it's hard to get off. Like, I don't think you can just wash it right off, but I don't think, it's still going to be on you 2 months later. Though I don't know. I haven't knocked over any ATMs. So
Yeah, but the other thing I'm thinking is if you owned one of the businesses, they spray this stuff on, it's there for 5 years. The owners of the business and the workers on that equipment are going to get a big dose of this stuff.
yeah, that's a very good point.
And we may be learning something. Anyway.
So how is this different from like luminol or like luminol in oil or something?
Well, supposedly, and I couldn't find much. I suppose it's proprietary secret, but supposedly each bottle of this has a unique signature, so you can use it to finger the burglar and say, well, it's without a doubt, this guy was at this business at this time and stole the contents of the cash register because the fingerprint, the digital signatures match up.
So it probably just is luminol. Just every bottle has a different pigment.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, they probably just mix a few pigments to make a number with like 1,000 different values in there, just like a key.
Right. And I was thinking too, it's like, depending on how they do this, I'd think it'd be like, back in the day, there were like 4 different Toyota keys. So everybody could open everybody else's like Toyota Camry or whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would think that they would eventually run out of combinations here, but we don't know we by the same, on the other side of that, we don't know the mechanism that they're using.
Well, I'm thinking they probably charge a lot for a bottle of this stuff, and you're not going to use the whole bottle at the first business. So if I was the cop, I'd say, well, we can reuse this bottle at this other business too. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And it's interesting that it's being used more and more widely, but we don't know a whole lot about it.
Yeah. Well, we'll probably be hearing some more about it. All right.
Right. So luminol, I'm just looking this right up over at PubChem, is an irritant. And it is harmful, swallowed, causes skin irritation. So yeah, a lot of this stuff can, and if it stays on your skin for a long time, can cause some rashes and irritation. So not good.
But this uses nanotechnology, which makes it immune to all criticism like blockchain.
I would like to point out that technically just using luminol is a form of nanotechnology.
Yeah, what is luminol?
It's a phosphorescent chemical that's often used to detect things like blood stains.
Well, what's the nanotechnology part of it?
Oh, it's just a chemical. So it.
Oh, well, but that means, nanotechnology means you crafted the microscopic things.
You absolutely do have to craft luminol in the lab. I mean, it does not occur naturally.
Okay.
Well, this supposedly what they're doing is they're using like a synthetic DNA combined with luminol.
Well, that's
yeah, like I said,
that's probably a marketing description of mixing 3 different colors to make a unique color.
Well, the thing is yeah. So the way that luminol works is that it will bind with things like blood and shine different colors, and you can use it to find like semen stains or blood stains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And if what I'm getting from Liz is that it's just doing that, but in a more precise manner. So it's mixing specifically with certain organic chemicals to give off different lights to identify it.
Yeah.
So, okay,
All
fair
right.
enough. But it's, yeah, luminol is an irritant. And it will, yeah. And if it's on your skin for a long time, it can definitely cause some rashes and not some fun times.
And it's especially irritating if you go to jail. Anyway.
It just said synthetic DNA tags combined with aluminol. So
Yeah. All right. And Kaitlyn's got Amazon taking face spot off.
Yes. Okay. So here we go. So The Verge has an article written by Son Hollister, who has an awesome Twitter handle, Starfire2258, which needs like an AOL address after that. Like get a resume from Starfire2258 at AOL.com. That'd be awesome. But anyway, so Starfire has an article here talking about a app called Fake Spot. And what is Fake Spot? Well, it goes on to Amazon and looks for fake reviews, which seems pretty harmless.
How does
But Amazon
identify them?
That's a good question. There are ways to kind of tell, like when you have I remember getting certain products that would say like, if you write a good review, we'll give you a free extra battery or something. So of course I wrote a good review and got an extra battery, but of course that review is fake. I'm not above this stuff, but and you know, you can track that, and you know, people can report, and there's a couple other ways to do it, I'm sure. And anyway, so it goes on to Amazon. It tells you, hey, these reviews are fake, be careful. And Amazon had it pulled from the App Store. Why did they have it pulled from the App Store? Well, they're a bit shaky on that reason. The obvious reason, of course, that the reason they're not saying is that it makes Amazon look bad. It makes people not trust the reviews and makes people not want to go to the website because they can see all these fake reviews. Now, the reason that Amazon's giving is, of course, cybersecurity reasons. We have essentially a web browser that goes onto our site that injects HTML to show which reviews are bad. And so it's injecting code into the site, and that could be used to steal passwords. And oh, we can't have that. Which of course it's not doing. It's not stealing passwords. It's just going on there and telling you which reviews are fake. And so there's some drama going on. And this isn't the only app that does this. I mean, there's apps like Honey that will tell you when there's coupons to be redeemed and stuff like that on websites. So yeah, big companies are just going to big company, I suppose.
And there's one I found years ago. I remember I was real excited to something called Amazon Price Watcher that breaks HTTPS. And it's not an Amazon app. It's a third-party app that does the same thing. It's a proxy that goes to Amazon on your behalf and mishandles your password.
Excellent. So this one, as far as I can tell, there's no evidence that it mishandles your passwords. Although, if you control the browser, you technically could.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them do. The Air Force app did. The West Point app did. A lot of them have an internal browser, and they just implement it incorrectly. So it does something like take away the encryption or break HTTPS validation.
Right. Although in this case, like I said, I think there's reason to believe that Amazon's reasons for wanting to take this down are less than altruistic.
Yeah, I would think so. Yep. All right. Fair enough. And then we got Alan with $1 million Bitcoin mining rigs.
Yes, it's an instance of reshoring of Bitcoin mining, or another example of the insatiable hunt for cheap energy, cheap electricity for Bitcoin mining. A couple of companies, BlackRock Petroleum Company of Nevada and Optimum Mining Host Limited Liability Company in China, have entered into an agreement to ship over at least 200,000 Bitcoin mining rigs to a natural gas plant in Alberta, Canada, which will then be used to, rather than produce natural gas for, I don't know, people's stoves and vehicles, it will instead be almost entirely committed to just cranking out electricity for Bitcoin mining. And options will also be there are options pending further agreements. There are options on an additional 800,000 mining rigs that will also be located at other BlackRock Petroleum Company gas plants throughout Canada. So great. This is the future, I guess.
Well, I think this is just another scam. I mean, they point out that both the companies didn't exist until a week ago and came out of nowhere. It's probably just some kind of scam, and it's not going to happen.
Oh, well, I guess you know more about this than I do then.
Well,
but
almost-
it sounds like they control this plant. It's the Caledonian Mainstream plant, or Caledonian Mainstream Company, I should say, which is the owner operator of these plants and gas wells.
Well, see, that
So-
might be the scam. Maybe the shares in the power plant are expected to go up from this news so they can do a pump and dump or something.
Yeah, it is traded over the counter apparently, so there may well be some angle there. And BlackRock, by the way, BlackRock Petroleum Company has nothing to do with BlackRock, the financial institution, although it's very conveniently the same name.
Yep. Maybe they'll actually do it. 1 million miners sounds like too much to me, though. I would have made a more plausible lie. But anyway, anything in the cryptocurrency space, the odds are like 99% that it's a scam. Anyway.
I should have figured that you'd heard about this and dismissed it.
Well, no, I haven't. I'm just, it's in that actually that article, the clue, but you know, most of these things are announcements to get you to invest. And then next month, shockingly, oh, something went wrong and it didn't happen. I had no idea that was coming.
Yeah. I have not checked the over-the-counter price on this BlackRock company shares. But...
Well, we'll see. You know,
yeah.
All right. Anyway, and for the last one, I've got American politics. So this guy that predicted the January 6th insurrection predicts, I think, quite reasonably, that in 2024, the Republicans who do not win elections will just demand that they get placed in office anyway, just like Trump, because Trump's claim that you should just ignore the election result, all the elections are fake, therefore I win, is something they're all jumping on board with. And this is typically how it goes when you end a democracy and you move into a different kind of system where some party just takes power whether they win or not. And in the spirit of that, you've got the cyber ninjas who are still months late on their audit, and all the facts are now coming out of the audit. They've now begun to explain that it's all fake. And what they've been demanding is that they need to go interview voters door to door and ask them who they voted for to verify their ballots, which is incredibly illegal, of course. We're supposed to have a secret ballot in America, but they're claiming they can't do a proper audit until they're allowed to do that. And I don't think they can possibly be allowed to do that. But so their preliminary results to claim that Trump deserves Arizona have already come out, and they have already been completely debunked. One of them, for example, is that there are 74,000 ballots that are fake. And the reason is because they were mail-in ballots. People chose to, and then there's no evidence of them actually being mailed, no stamp or anything. And that's because people did exactly what I did. I get a mail-in ballot, and then I drive in and drop it in the box instead of sending it through the mail. And they counted, and the number is like within one of the total. 74,243 of these ballots they say are fake. The actual number of ballots that were delivered was almost exactly that number, like within two. So that's what it's all been. And I remember the earlier one was they would look at the logs of the voting machines and it said ballot reversed. They said that means they flipped it from Trump to Biden. And what that really means is the user put it in the wrong end of the ballot and they have to pull it out and turn it around and put the other end in. So all of their findings are like this, where they are just idiots and they don't even know how to interpret the numbers they're finding. So since they're desperate to find fraud, they will find two numbers they don't understand and claim that proves that there was fraud. So this is the kind of fake stuff that you use to invalidate an election and end a democracy, and instead just say, you know, we're in. So
I would really like to know more about the RFP selection process for this gig, because I would really like to know where they came up with these grifters from.
Oh, well, that actually came out today. I just saw it on Twitter right before the podcast. There's a scandal of the Florida Republican Party. The chair of the Florida Republican Party is involved in like a sexual harassment against a male person in the office charge. And it has come out that his office is equal to the home office of cyber ninjas. So apparently cyber ninjas are the Republican Party of Florida, the people doing this audit.
Makes a whole lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're all just the same people. They just get together in a room and say, all right, well, let's have an audit, and who's going to do it? And you're the cyber guy, go do it. Well, he's closely allied to them, and he's been pushing QAnon theories and stuff all along. I mean, it's all the same people and I suppose a lot of them are true believers. They really believe that Democrats hacked everything, and that Democrats are perhaps killing babies and drinking their blood and stuff, and therefore they're trying to prove that. And
Is this another no bid contract deal where they just?
Oh, nobody ever explained how they made the contract or where the money's coming from. The Republicans in Arizona won't explain any of that, or how much it costs.
I thought it was taxpayer funded.
Some of the money came from taxpayers. Some of it came from unknown other sources.
Wow.
And you can find out why. And they're months late, and they haven't published their procedures, and the procedures keep changing. It's extremely fishy.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right.
But they have a cool name.
They have a cool name, the Cyber Ninjas. I think we need the Cyber Pirates to go against them. But anyway, all right. Well, that's it for this one, and we'll be back on Friday. I'll stop this if I can find the button.